Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Spooked. The Scary Story Improvised Podcast. I'm Damien Depping.
I'm Colin Morey.
I'm Cody Crane.
Hey, boys.
Oh,
Hi. Hi, Damien.
You're on that side again.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, I was testing out that side, but I was like, yeah, you know what? I like this side.
Okay. All right.
I want to give like a little bit of an insider thing for our folks at home before we introduce our terrific guest.
Yeah.
Insider. Huh?
This thing I thought that was weird is that Colin...
What are you going to make up about me?
Oh, no.
No,
What are you going to make up about me this week, huh?
because we come into the studio, we come in at different times or whatever, but Colin, when you tell me that you're on your way, you always send me your Lyft status so I can follow the ride.
Yeah.
Do you actually?
Yeah, I do.
That's a weird thing to do. It's
That
like
is a weird thing
you
to
don't
do.
think I believe that you're coming.
No, it's just that I like my friends knowing where I am. Knowing that I'm safe and I'll be on time.
Oh, we weren't worried about that.
Oh, well, I was.
Well, I was in the car, so it didn't matter to me.
Yeah, well, he sent me where you were, so I was tracking you.
Okay, so he could track you, but if we did a Lyft share,
Yeah.
I'm not able to see where the hell we are. That is bananas.
I could see where you were, but you couldn't.
Yes, on the app. I'm saying. I mean, physically, I could see where I was.
I mean, Lyft isn't going to be a sponsor now.
They should be. We're trying to work with you to improve your product, Lyft. That's all we're trying to do.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that Lyft blows. But you know who doesn't? Our guest tonight, we got Johnny Wunder here.
Cody Crane's opinions do not represent
wow.
the podcast.
Oh, I'm happy to be. Is it, if I start talking now?
Yeah, please.
Well, you're
Just
greenlit
your
to talk.
moment.
Greenlit
Just
to
like
talk. Yeah.
the high level takeaway from that little conversation, I would say is that your friend, he doesn't care, but your friend cares about.
I was
your
in the car.
whereabouts.
I cared. I was physically there.
And whether he expressed the amount of empathy and emotional
Yeah.
thing that you needed, he cares. He's looking. He's tracking.
Thanks.
Yeah, Cody does have a hard time expressing his emotions.
Yeah.
Well, I just think do you not think that's weird, though, to send someone, like, your Lyft status so they know where you are?
Well, it depends what I guess it depends what his motives were. If it was like, hey, look, like you think I'm always lying, I'm proving to you that I'm not lying, so I'm actually showing up. It could be a trust issue on your part.
I have never stated that I want to know where he is at any time.
Or he was in crisis, and he was sending you his whereabouts so you could call the police.
I thought he was bragging that he was driving through Leslieville.
Oh, that's what he was doing. I'm in the nice
which is
part
a
of
whole
town.
nother, probably a whole other podcast that we could start.
I don't know.
yeah.
I'll let you guys figure it out. Yeah.
The inner workings of your friends and how they manipulate you. Yeah, so it's good to be here.
Yeah, it's
Thank
good
you
to
so much
have
for
you.
coming.
This is exciting.
Johnny, you're a producer. You done a bit of acting. You got a writing.
Yeah, I mean,
You do it all.
I've kind of I think my mother would say I'm a drifter. I've kind of done everything, but I guess I'll give you the bullet points. So I'm born and raised in Seattle, West Seattle. And then when I was right out of high school, I was a bat boy for the Anaheim Angels. My godfather pitched for them and sort of said whenever I graduated from high school that if there was a job opening that he would try to get me in there. So I went and picked up jocks and did all that stuff for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which is
Sound as
I have a bunch of stories I could tell from that, but it'll take too long. And then during that time, I got really, really good at golf, which, it's funny how life happens. I think my life was kind of going in a certain trajectory, which equaled, working for my old man and doing the family thing, staying in West Seattle. And the moment I picked up a golf club, my life shot off into a completely different direction.
Yeah.
And ended up in California, played for a little while, was never good enough to go pro, but that was the intent. And then I played a couple tournaments against some pretty top level amateurs, and at that point I was smart enough to go like, there's no way in hell I can compete with these guys. And then ended up moving to LA, and then I'll kind of fast forward a little bit, and in between when I actually got into film and I guess content creation, I did real estate jobs. I managed a nightclub called Les Deux in Hollywood. I did marketing for a Mercedes-Benz dealership, bartended, waited tables, just a bunch of stuff. And then at like 30, I'm 41 now, so at like 33 years old, I had someone in my life that was kind of like, okay, you're doing okay, like, you know, you're making money and paying the bills, but you're miserable. You need to find something new to do because you're a piece of shit. And,
to put it bluntly,
pardon my friend.
Yeah.
Tough love.
They have a hard time expressing too.
I ended up just sort of like out of spite sending out. I don't know how much you guys know about the film industry, but breaking into the film industry just to pick up jocks in the film industry is tough. The competition's very thick. So I'm like, I'm 33. I didn't graduate from Stanford. I don't know anybody. You know, how is this all going to go down? So like literally out of spite, I printed out like 500 resumes that had no entertainment experience on it. I was like, all right, I'm going to schlep these out, and ended up getting a job as an unpaid assistant for, you know, smaller producer. Learned a lot, did really well in the year I was with him. Got kind of, you know, recruited by another company that was in a bigger conversation, doing bigger things, and succeeded well there, and then ultimately landed on with my current partner at the Coalition Group / Traveling Picture Show Company. And if you don't know those companies, we just produced a movie called, it was called Huntsville. Now it's called Josie with Sophie Turner from Game of Thrones and Dylan McDermott. And that was like our first movie that we actually made. Because it's fun to be in the film business, but unless you're making movies, you're just another schmuck with a bunch of good ideas. And that's primarily what I do now. I'm a partner in a company in LA, and I live in Toronto, which is weird enough. I have 2 kids, so you have to go where the babies are. And then on top of that, I'm also I produce and develop all the original content for a pretty big website called Golf WRX, and I host a podcast in the studio for that website. And so it's just 2 kids and a wife, and it's just 2 different big jobs that, you know, hopefully will pay well at some point. And that's kind of what I'm doing. So,
Real American dream.
Yeah. But I guess what got me into this room is in the film side of it, I have an affinity for scary stuff, and I can sort of dive into that if you want to hear.
Yeah,
a little bit.
you
I
came
know
to the right
Cody was
place.
telling me about this.
Because I want to know here first, before we dive into this, do you believe in ghosts?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay, I feel like that's like a requirement to be.
For what?
For what?
For what?
I don't know, to like scary stuff.
See,
What the fuck are you talking about?
Well, no, it sort of is, because
Yeah.
I agree. I agree with you. Like, I don't
Okay.
know exactly what you.
you don't have to pity him.
Yeah.
But
But
we
I
already
think,
do.
I think you have to be open-minded to something outside of our own reality, our own perception, and whether it's faith in a higher power, or ghosts around the corner, or something, different planes, or metrics, or whatever the hell you want to call them. You have to have a little bit of an open mind to scares that don't look like a lion or a tiger, or something immediate, like right in front of your face. So I think believing in ghosts is sort of a prerequisite for liking scary stuff.
Yeah, maybe not like a requirement,
well,
but definitely something that like.
I kind of disagree. I do not believe in any of that stuff at all. And I still like scary stuff.
Okay.
I love Stephen King books. I love things like that. I don't mind monsters and ghosts and stuff, but I don't think that they are real.
Okay.
I mean, I don't believe in magic, yet I still like Harry Potter. I don't think an inherent belief in the thing is required to enjoy the content for what it is.
I guess that's an interesting argument. To enjoy it, you can enjoy, because that's storytelling, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, that's.
And that's what I get from it, is an
Okay.
enjoyment, yes.
It feels like Colin knew all of this information, and he put you in a trap here.
He
Right.
did. He trapped
Yeah.
to get called out.
Well, I think it's also
It's
like
scary, isn't it?
to seek it out and to be able to identify, like for my chosen, to seek it out and to find intellectual property or things that have that texture to it. I think you sort of have to you kind of have to believe a little bit.
I
to
can
build
see
the
that.
curiosity.
Yeah. When you have a different kind of drive for it, I can understand that
Right.
that motivation for it, for sure.
But at a baseline level, like, do you have to believe in ghosts to like scary stories? No.
No.
Yes.
No. So I
think that was
No,
Colin.
that's
you
that's
set
maybe
that
where
up, you son of a gun.
I may have misspoke on that.
But 3 of 4 of us believe in ghosts here
Right.
at this
Yeah,
table.
Okay.
We just got one joker over here.
No, I will
voice of
preface
reason.
this by saying also that I I'm one of those people that would love to be able to walk into a scary house and feel the weight and feel like the, you know, I have to manufacture those feelings for myself, like talk myself into it.
That's interesting.
But I'm not an open vessel where I can walk in. Like I have friends that'll walk into a, you know, haunted house or like a haunted, which I'll get into in a second. But like some of the properties that we own and are developing, and they'll walk in and be like, nope, no fucking way I'm going in here. Energy's too thick, can't do it. And I'm just like, it's a freaking lobby of a hotel. Like, I don't feel anything. I smell food, but that's about as far as I'll go.
Oh yeah, they don't like the deep fryer smell.
Right.
I know that sometimes. You know when you're like by a condo with a McDonald's in the bottom, and you're like 30 feet away from it, but that's where the vents are, and you get hit with French fries, and you're like, no.
Sure.
All right.
That's
What he just said.
that's what it's like. I'm guessing.
Have you ever had a paranormal experience?
I have night terrors. So I think where I
Like a sleep paralysis kind of deal?
Yeah, like I've had multiple moments in my, you know, my life and my childhood. You know, I've had moments where you have that like you slip in a dream and you feel like somebody pulled your feet down in your head. Like I've had that. But I've also had you know, experience where I've had a really gnarly one that I can still, you know, remember everything from. I was living in Balboa Island in Newport Beach in blah blah blah, California, and roommates, you know, we had this old house, and for whatever reason, it was the pattern for me is if I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't go back to sleep, and I end up falling asleep at like 6 a.m. To go back to bed, that's like my hot time. Like that's when I know I'm gonna have something funky's gonna happen.
Okay.
It kind of triggers it.
I don't know what it is. So I had a night like that, and it like, you know, I had probably been asleep for like 45 minutes, and I was having a really terrible nightmare about the house that we were living in. And in my what I felt was I'd actually woken up, but I was paralyzed. I couldn't move.
Yeah.
And all I heard on the side of my bed was scratching.
Ooh.
Like a dog scratching the side of the bed, and I'm trying to like lean over to see what it is, and at that point I couldn't move, so I start in my mind screaming to my roommate Preston, like Preston, like get in here, and eventually, and I could see him walk into my room, and I could see him walk up to me and wake me up, and finally I kind of came into reality, and he's like, dude, what is going on? And I go, did you see where's the dog? Like, there's a dog here. He's like, dude, there's no dog. And I'm like, I was screaming to you. He's like, dude, you weren't screaming. You were just kind of whispering my name. And I just happened to be going to the bathroom, and I looked in, and your door's never open, and it was open. And he's like, but you were whispering my name, and your eyes were wide open, and you weren't blinking. And what I could feel when the thing was next to my bed or whatever it was, is I could actually feel something on top of me. Like, you know, like face to face. Like if I would have looked up that way, I would have seen a face type thing, but I couldn't, you know, position myself to get to see what was there. But it was like something right on top of you, and
That's crazy.
it scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was like residual alcohol from 2 nights before. Like I have no idea what caused that, but that was like the night terror that I had that really scared the crap out of me. And you know, since then I've had a few experiences like that, but nothing that vivid.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, you're awake
Yeah.
and I could tell it like I'm telling it right now.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Have you ever watched the documentary The Nightmare?
I have. Well, I know the filmmaker, and
Oh,
I've watched part of the filmmaker's name. This is Lee Stobie represents him. I'm name dropping right now. I'm trying to remember, but I know his manager, and I got introduced to the filmmaker. I don't remember his name. But I haven't seen the full documentary. I got into it. It's like it's very detailed.
Yeah. It's very good.
Slow burn, kind of
Yeah.
like, you know, you have to really want to sit down there and watch it. But
A lot of people like are scared to watch it, especially if they've had like sleep paralysis, because once you kind of watch it, you kind of like think about it more, and you're more like kind of in tune to get that sleep paralysis again. So, and that's, I think they talk about it a little bit in the documentary too. Like when people are hearing stories of sleep paralysis,
Right.
they're more likely to then get that.
Oh, like when your parents get a new car and then you start seeing that car everywhere kind of thing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Not what he said. No.
I mean, it's kind of the same.
Well, it's also like perception. Like I talk about this a lot with screenwriters, and they talk about where stories come from, and if you read certain books, it'll tell you like there's 7 archetypes of characters you can tell, or 7 types of stories you can tell, and blah 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 blah, blah, all this stuff. And like in regards to like nightmares, like that's an interesting kind of way into like. Now I'm trying to recreate that scenario out of curiosity, because sometimes curiosity will outpace your fear.
Yeah.
And you sort of like, okay, great. Like I didn't sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night and something gnarly is going to happen. And you're already sort of subconsciously setting yourself up. So at that point, it's like, well, is it real or is it is it manufactured? And a lot of that time that happens with stories, it'll be like people are like, I have this great idea for this, and this. And then I always ask them like, what kind of movies did you watch when you're a kid?
Yeah.
And the characters and the path to like resolution and a lot of stuff will actually start to fit the what they grew up watching.
Yeah.
So like you'll have a lot of screenwriters that'll talk about like this has got nothing to do with the show, but I think it's interesting anyway.
Yeah, it is.
Well, sometimes what I would do in these mentorship programs that you do with screenwriters is I'll pitch them a story. And I won't name any names, and I'll go, okay, this is about a farm boy that, his parents died, and he's by himself. He's got he's living with some family members, and he's on this farm, and he hates his life, and he really just wants to get out. And ultimately, he goes on this journey to find his dad, and he finds out his dad wasn't a very good guy. And you start to tell that story, and people are like, oh, this is like, this sounds, a little bit familiar, this and that. But then you drop it, well, that's Star Wars. But it's a story that's been told a million times over and over and over again. But ultimately, like when you tell that story, it starts to recreate, and all of a sudden, like the different examples of that narrative start to pop in everybody's head. It's like, oh, it could be this, and this. But that story is littered with lightsabers and Jedis and shit. But at the end of the day, it's like
it's still got the same.
Just a kid looking for his dad. Like that's it. It's a family story. And I don't know what the point of telling that was, but I think like our ways into finding what scares us, what motivates us, what I guess flips our switch is it's that sort of unites everybody. So anyway,
it proves the point that everyone's always saying that nothing's original in Hollywood anymore.
It kind of can't be. Like how many times have you watched? And I love studio movies. I'll go watch The Avengers 50 times over. I love that stuff because it's like I always my analogy for it is I want to go to get a cheeseburger.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go in and get a cheeseburger.
Hey,
like
who
they gave me
doesn't?
a cheeseburger. Like that's all I want.
Can we get some cheeseburgers in here?
Yeah. And but they're recycled stories. But then you'll see something like I just saw Call Me by Your Name, which I don't know if you guys have seen that yet.
I haven't, but I've heard good things.
But that's a new. I don't want to call it a new story, but those are new characters in a new kind of high level situation that happens between a young boy and an older guy that I'd never seen that story before. So for me, it's like, oh, well, it is possible to. But that was in the confines of a house like in Italy or Spain or wherever they were. There's no, Iron Man or anything flying around.
There's no Iron Man in that
No,
movie?
no Iron Man.
I don't know if I want to see it anymore.
I think there's more art house films that need Iron Man in them.
Everything needs Iron Man.
According to Blake Schneider, Save the Cat, there's only 10 stories.
Yeah.
And then those are used over and over. But they also say in order to break the rules, you need to know all the rules. So a movie like that could have known all the rules and broken them.
Right.
Could have.
But that's just theory. But you know what else might be theory? The story we're about to tell.
Right.
Johnny, are you excited to do some improv?
I am.
All right.
Yeah.
Cody, are you?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Damien, what about yourself? Are you excited to do some improv?
I'm all right about it.
We have one of these that's empty, so I'm going to do
I
some
have
quick
these
stuff.
eggs everywhere in my house because my kids we don't let them eat the chocolate, but the Kinder eggs, they always
Yeah.
have prizes in them.
Yeah.
So
What do you do with the chocolate?
my wife and I
Oh,
eat
okay.
the chocolate.
Smart.
Yeah.
If you never
Yeah.
tell them that there's chocolate
Genius.
with
But
them,
they
they'll
want
never
they
know.
want the Justice League figures in the middle of them. So
Oh.
so these eggs are everywhere.
Wait, which ones? There's 2 left. Okay.
They're banned in America, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they are still currently banned in America.
You say it's
I'm
a choking
not
hazard or
mistaken.
something?
Yeah.
But you're allowed to have your guns in your home, so that's nice.
Political.
That's for the NPR.
Yeah,
podcast.
that's for
Yeah,
NPR.
yeah.
Well, I just saw a thing the other day about like a 2-year-old who shot herself with a gun that was in the home and died.
Oh my god.
So
Well, I'm
welcome to
glad we're
Spooked.
starting this
Yeah.
story on such a high
Shit
note.
got real.
hey, you're the one who talking about choking on Kinder eggs, Colin.
Can you
I was
choke
just-
on these?
Apparently
Well,
the
a child
toy's
can.
inside.
Oh.
No, I think it's this, and then they put
Really?
it in their
This?
face. Yeah, and then it's perfect child esophagus size. Just cork it up like a bottle of wine.
Can we get a doctor in here?
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Johnny, what did you draw?
I got swing.
Oh, I got swing as well. That means we have no responsibility in the story. We can be whoever we want, whenever we want.
That's what you think, because I got the narrator, and oh boy, you better watch out, bud. You're getting so much responsibility.
So we can chime in whenever.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna say.
We-
Okay.
We can do whatever.
I'm gonna give you a paper route, Cody.
Oh, great. Perfect.
And I drew the celebrity position. So Cody's going to give me 4 options, and I'm going to have to pick one of them and then do an impression of that celebrity throughout the story at some point.
All right. So
Yeah.
our 4 options here are Dwayne Wade, Drake, Sarah Jessica Parker, and in honor of Johnny's podcast, we have Phil Mickelson.
Oh.
Now, I don't know.
Keep in mind we have a golf expert to judge you the whole way.
Oh yeah. So
Like,
So if you just talk like a white dude,
oh, then I'll do Phil Mickelson.
just
Perfect.
be a white person.
Colin's very good at
I'm
playing white people.
Generic white man
Yeah.
1. That's
That's
my
you. That's you.
bread and
That's
butter.
Phil Mickelson.
That's my
He
bread
just
and butter.
happens to be really good at
Yeah.
golf. Yeah.
I feel like there's a few characters that you've done where you're just like, oh, he's a generic white guy.
Yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a few others in
Hey,
there. I can't
hey, no,
remember.
don't plug yourself.
Yeah. Stop calling out Jake Gyllenhaal too. Jeez.
Sorry.
Leave the guy alone. He's trying to live his life.
Just one episode, I wish we would leave Jake Gyllenhaal alone.
Should that be the hashtag for the show?
No.
Leave Jake Gyllenhaal alone. Okay. So as the narrator, we're going to go to canigeta.com for a location, a relationship, or a word. Let's do location. And, oh, you didn't want to get political, but we just got Oval Office.
Oh,
Great.
Well, I
Wow.
guess it could just be an office that's oval.
Yeah, could be anything.
Because there's so many.
yeah.
Well, it doesn't say the Oval Office, so.
I mean, you don't have to.
Okay, I think now
have
we're just
us
getting
have
like
a
bogged in
glimpse
the
of
details.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
but
We don't need the glimpse of a mind of a narrator over here.
was
I'm
gonna
just
say,
justifying it for you because you didn't want it to be political.
Whatever happens, I'm gonna try and fit the White House down. Whatever it's called, the Jerry Butler. Is that the name?
Olympus
of
Has Fallen?
Olympus
Or-
Has Fallen.
Yeah.
I'm gonna follow that storyline. Something bad's gonna happen.
I don't-
Somebody's gonna terrorize the White House, and that's
I don't
gonna
know
be
the
my thing.
storyline, but I'm intrigued.
Okay.
I have seen Independence Day.
Yeah,
Not
same
same.
movie.
No,
And they
same.
they blow
Exact
up the
same.
White House in that.
Yeah.
They do,
so-
but it happens like 2 seconds. This is a whole movie of people
okay.
trying to blow up the White
So
House.
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway.
It's called a slow burn.
You ever heard of it?
I'm more of a big action right now kind of guy. Will Smith flying in and saving the day, baby. All right. Welcome to Shape Town. Mr. Circle is standing in his office, looking around, trying to make some phone calls. He's got to find those rectangles with all the words on it. What are they called? Oh, yes, documents. He calls his secretary in, Mr. Triangle. Mr. Triangle has a hard time getting through the door, but eventually he makes it in.
Mr. Triangle, in here, into the Oval Office, then.
Well, yes, sir. What would you like?
Oh,
Hold on. Oh, my right ankle's just stuck at the side of the door there.
Oh, Mr. Triangle, you do not want to test me on a day like this. I need documents. Lots of them.
Which one, sir?
All of them.
Oh, there's so many of them to carry, though.
Mr. Triangle, I told you you do not want to test me.
And Mr. Triangle knew that he did not want to test Mr. Circle.
You're
so
right.
down to the basement he went to start hauling up those boxes of documents. Box after box. They stacked up around the Oval Office, making an almost impenetrable wall around the whole thing.
And the final box. I'm so tired. Please let me go home now.
But he couldn't leave, for they were walled into the Oval Office.
Oh, I've trapped us.
Oh, damn it, Mr. Triangle. You knew that I have to watch Survivor tonight.
Oh, it's Wednesday already?
It's Wednesday. And it's 7 p.m. and everyone knows Survivor's at 8.
I guess I could start taking the boxes down.
We're on a time crunch here, Mr. Triangle. Let's get to it.
But Mr. Triangle couldn't take them down because he'd already glued the boxes together stupidly.
I just had this bowl of Elmer's, and I just figured I'd use it.
He didn't want the boxes to fall down after all.
Remember the last time they fell on me?
Mr. Triangle.
That's how I got this right angle. I
Okay.
used to be an equilateral
Yeah.
triangle.
Okay. You're just a lot to deal with right now. I need you to sort out these documents, figure out a way out of here, and get me home.
Okay.
Contact the head of security.
That's right.
Head of security here.
Captain Rectangle.
Captain Rectangle, it's Mr. Triangle.
This is Captain Rectangle. Noticing that there's a situation, you guys are boxed in, and seems to be some sort of weird bowl of Elmer's glue that makes no sense to this situation. But what can we
I'm
do
a
for you today?
crafty individual, but that's besides the point. We're boxed in, and I glued them together, and I don't know how to get out.
Now, is there any visible doors that you see there? Anything to pry open?
Do you see any doors, Mr. Circle?
Mr. Triangle, do you feel that?
Mr. Rectangle, I'm going to put you on hold for just a minute.
That's unnecessary, but go for it.
What are you talking about? Do I feel what?
Well, Mr. Triangle, I've been keeping a lot of secrets from you. Mainly that I'm a part-time medium.
You're a part-time medium, like you speak?
Usually he wears a large.
Yes, I dabble.
Okay, well, what do you feel?
Well, I feel a lot of things. The tightness of this shirt, for one. But also a presence. More than just Captain Rectangle on the other line.
Oh, okay, well, I'm going to talk to Rectangle a bit.
Do you not hear that?
No.
Am I going insane?
I'm not all hip and jive with that medium mumbo jumbo.
Okay, I took a course. Does that solidify it for you?
We go
Not
back
really.
to the medium course. This was in the room was more of like an octagon shape, but one of the walls was covered with posters. That was about it.
This is Captain Rectangle. I'm just gonna force my way back onto the radio here. Do you guys see any Karate Kid posters in the room? There's been some intel that there is some posters in the wall.
Yeah, I hung one up
Can I ask you why?
because it was with my Elmer's glue, and I figured we'd like to look at something.
Mr. Triangle, I'm about to lose it. Who authorized this?
What, the poster?
Yes, if it wasn't the head of security, it certainly wasn't the head of this
Thing.
thing.
Okay, Mr. Rectangle, did you author? Wait, I don't need anybody.
This is Captain Rectangle. We are hearing some sort of a squeal or somebody falling off of something in the background. Is that one of you, or is that somebody?
No, I'm firmly planted on the ground.
No, I hear it. I hear it too. For some reason, Triangle doesn't.
I don't hear a thing.
So, you're taking advice from what? A ghost? A spirit?
Who, me?
Yes.
Oh, I don't think so.
He is.
Captain
Maybe-
Rectangle here again, chiming in through the radio. We're noticing
Rectangle?
that sound again. It keeps coming through on the radio. Is there anybody else in the room with you?
No, just
Well,
me and
don't
Circle.
forget to mention me, yeah.
Yeah, me and Mr. Circle,
Yeah, there's definitely another person.
and apparently Mr. Circle says there's someone else in here, but
Yeah.
I don't see
You're the
them.
only one that doesn't hear it, Triangle.
Look up, dummy.
It sounded like it said look up.
And above
Oh.
them, they saw a floating circle.
Oh, now that I see the shape, I can hear it.
Oh, great. It's my dead mother.
No, I was a cylinder, but then I fell off the roof.
So you're
And now
two-dimensional now.
I'm a circle.
My mother was a cylinder, too.
Son?
Yeah, that's right. You can't pull the wool over my eyes, Mom.
I didn't recognize you with that mustache.
Okay, Mr. Rectangle, you need to get me out of here. I can't be here for a family
Triangle,
reunion.
you are not leaving at this point.
So the only way that we can actually get you out is to
Burn it down?
Burn it down.
Oh.
So what we
Yeah.
propose here is that we're just going to light it on fire, and
If you-
you guys will have to figure out how to get out.
What's the timeline on that?
6 seconds.
Oh, wow, that's a quick fire.
There was no time to waste, as there is some sort of a floating orb up in the ceiling that talks, which is another problem that we're dealing with. So anyway,
And as everyone knows, security's main duty is dealing with the floating circle and not the people's lives.
so
they-
as you guys know in the room, our biggest concern is dealing with floating circles, and that's always priority one. So
Mayors can be replaced.
mayors can be replaced per our rules. So
Just get me out of here.
Okay, there's a problem with your plan, and this is where it's not going to work, right? We need to act fast. It's 7:30. Survivor starts at 8. But I won't be able to watch Survivor if I'm dead.
we've taken that into consideration, and what we're going to do now, before the 6 seconds starts, is we're going to play it on the loudspeaker so you can hear what happens in the end.
A special screening of Survivor just for Mr. Circle.
We call it a special hearing for you, sir. It's a special hearing of Survivor.
Is it still going to start at 8? So
It's
you're
going to
giving me
start
half an hour?
right now. So if you'll
Early.
just listen over the loudspeaker.
Must be a special episode.
Sorry, Mr. Triangle, is there something wrong? Or is
They asked Mr. Triangle to close his ears as he wasn't authorized to listen to this episode.
He did not sign the NDA, so we're going to have to ask Circle to cover his ears, question mark?
Okay.
Yeah, I'll cover him for you.
Oh, your hands are really sweaty.
I'll cover them.
Oh,
Mom,
your ha-
you stay out of it.
As you
I
can
love
hear,
you, son.
the floating orb is still giving off some sort of a signal, so if you could just stop talking and we'll play it for you now, sir.
All
Here
right.
it goes. How is-
Previously on Survivor.
Ooh, I don't know if I want to be here for this anymore. You gotta get me out of here, Rectangle. Burn it down now.
Wait. Are we on Survivor?
I don't know.
This is Captain Rectangle again here. Yes, you are on Survivor.
Wait, Rectangle, your voice sounds familiar. Are you sure you're not Jeff Probst?
God almighty, I'm trying to cover my voice so you don't recognize it's me, but it is me.
Oh.
So what we're
That's-
going to do here is replace...
That's right. Mr. Rectangle was in disguise all along. All of a sudden, the paper walls went up in flames, and they could see for the first time that they were actually on a desert island.
And Mr. Triangle, here's the conch, so you may speak for the tribe.
Oh.
Not
I don't know if
referring
I
to
want all
Lord-
Everybody
power.
realized this was a mistake giving Mr. Triangle the conch.
Well, I don't know
Could
if
have
I
chose
want
any other one of
Yeah,
us.
and this story oddly sounds like Lord of the Flies, but is that the name of the movie?
Yes?
Yes?
I don't know. I don't know if I want all this power. Can you take the conch circle?
Gladly. Thank you.
So anyway,
Mr. Circle decided to pick teams for dodgeball.
What?
All right. And everyone but Triangle over here.
okay.
Oh.
Thank you.
I'm the guy who always walks around naked and makes everyone uncomfortable.
Richard?
Great.
My name is Gary.
The only one that's not a shape. Perfect. Yeah,
I'm
you're
a
on
shape.
our team.
I'm a very nice shape.
Yeah, you and Rhombus over here.
This is a fun time.
Wait, we're playing dodgeball on Survivor? This doesn't make any sense.
All right, I may have a few questions because Triangle might be onto something here. First and foremost, how are we on the show? Like, how long do I have to be here until I'm voted out? I didn't. The city's gonna be in trouble.
I'm just an assistant. I don't
Well,
know.
I wasn't asking you.
Oh,
My name is Bob Rules. I'm coming in here. The rules of the game, sir, are if you get hit by a dodgeball, that if so facto you are off the show. So
short season.
so be quick.
Did my dead mother have to sign any contracts?
No. What?
Your dead mother is of no concern to us.
I didn't do anything.
But she's on the show.
She seems rather frantic and over-coffeed, but we will deal with her later.
Son, I didn't do anything.
So,
Well, if we're gonna get off the island, you hit me first. I want to go.
Well, it is only you and Phil
I'm-
Nicholson on a team, and the rest
Mr.
of us
Triangle
over
got
here.
hit by several dodgeballs right in his dumb face.
Oh, thank you for sending me home. But apparently you said Phil Mickelson was on the team? That's me. I'm just golfing next door. I don't know what you're talking about. This island has a resort next door. I'm golfing.
All right, it really sounds like Survivor lost its budget this year. You put us next to a golf course. What are we in a sand pit? What's
Yeah,
going
you are.
on here?
You're in a 40-foot by 40-foot boxed-in sand pit.
That's right. Survivor had been on the air for so long and started to become a parody of itself. There was no real budget, and nobody really gave a shit anymore, so they were just throwing people next to golf courses and telling them they were on an island.
well, oddly enough, this is Jeff Probst with my disguised voice again. I didn't want anybody to know it was me, but that sand pit is actually a sarlacc pit, so stay out of the middle of it because
It wasn't.
Hey, old Jeffy. Hey, it's Phil Mickey right here.
hey, man.
You wanna hit the links?
He didn't.
No, I don't.
Oh, that's
I have
heartbreaking.
no interest in that at any level.
Oh, I guess I'm golfing alone today.
I guess we've isolated you.
Phil Mickelson got hit in the face with several dodgeballs.
Ow! Ow! I'm not even playing.
Security escorted him off the premises.
Bye.
Now you get out of here.
Phil.
Oh, why'd you guys take my teammate away?
Why you got hit too?
Yeah, I know. I'm just sitting on this.
Nobody wanted to touch Mr. Triangle. He was still there. Sad. Whiny. Alone.
I'm alone.
Yeah. If you want.
Son.
Yeah, I was just about to offer you up to Triangle.
What?
You know,
I don't know what you mean.
he's lonely,
Uh-huh.
needs a friend.
What does that have to do with me?
Well, I thought you're dead. You won't care. You'll spend time with him.
Excuse me?
Well, will you care?
No, that's rather rude of you.
No, you won't care. Good.
Who are you talking to, Mr. Circle?
Do you still not see it?
No, I did for a hot minute back in the office, but I don't see anyone now.
I mean, like, Jeff Rope sees her. I see her.
Will Jeff be my friend?
Rhombus sees
I
her.
don't need any friends at this
Oh.
point. I'm just here to facilitate the show
Oh,
in a disguised voice.
I was really hoping I could be friends with a famous person.
Yeah, my mom's famous.
I thought you said your mom was dead.
You can
Well-
be dead and famous.
Yeah, you can be dead and famous. Look at Elvis.
Yeah.
Who?
My mom is Elvis.
Who?
You heard me.
I did, but I don't know who that is.
You don't know who Elvis is?
No.
Yeah, very good.
This is Jeff Probst again. We can't help you.
At this point, Triangle, you're lost and, well, quite frankly, useless.
All of a sudden, a team of golf carts showed up to pick everyone up. Everyone got into their respective carts and drove off, leaving Mr. Triangle in the sand pit to wallow in his self-pity.
I guess I'll go drown myself.
Son, are we going to the 19th hole?
I'm pretty sure, Mom, they just wrapped up this show
Are
and canceled it.
are we getting cocktails?
I guess whatever you want, Mom.
You guys need to get your golf carts off the green. I'm trying to putt.
Phil Mickelson, why are you back?
What do you mean, why am I back? I told you I was golfing, and
That's
you guys
right.
just
Phil Mickelson wrestled off the security guards just so he could get back on the green. He was so dedicated to his craft that he would suffer the grave consequences of being kicked off the club by...
You'll do anything for that jacket,
He'll
won't
do
you?
anything
Oh,
for
I'll
that
do
jacket.
anything. I hit those security guards in the head with my 9-iron.
Did you
I
kill-
think they're dead.
You killed them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anything for the sport that I love.
This is Jeff Probst. Sounds good.
So, you didn't want to golf with me, but you liked the fact that I killed 2 security guards. You flip-floppy son of a bitch.
Meanwhile, back at the Oval Office, with Mr. Circle's absence, a new shape had taken residence there and become the true mayor of Shapetown. It was Mr. Hexagon.
Oh, God. So many responsibilities, so many documents. What do I do? Who elected me? Where am I? Why? Why? Who did this?
Spooked.
Well, that was a scary story.
Oh, my God.
And it made sense the whole way through.
Yeah.
That was one of the
Oh,
easiest
boy.
storylines to ever follow. Yeah.
I am so confused.
Johnny, have you ever been scared like that in your life?
No. Like, have I ever been that socially uncomfortable?
Oh, yeah.
No.
And that's terrifying in its own right.
I was working through a lot of stuff there. There was a lot of like past traumas that I was working through, but I feel like
I think that'd be a better tagline for us. The socially uncomfortable podcast.
it's Jesus, God in heaven. Okay.
I'm glad it brought you back through things to work those through, though.
I'm 50% of the way through it, I think.
Do we want to finish that up right now?
No.
Oh, okay.
I
just
thought about
I'd
it for a
ask.
second. I'm like, you guys look friendly. I could probably, I might be able to shed a tear in front of you, but I'm not going to do it today.
Oh, for the audience too.
Yeah, we got our live studio audience.
That's what we got. We record every tier on the show.
Yeah.
You mean in the fishbowl that is the Pacific Junction?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hotel.
Yeah, they're all here eating for us.
Eating.
I've always wondered what it would feel like to be an exhibit at the zoo. In the
Do you need to
fishbowl.
work through some stuff right now?
No, not at all. You've never been to the zoo?
I've been to the zoo, but I've never wanted to be.
I didn't say I
Part of
wanted
it.
to
That
be.
sounds
There's
like
a difference between wanting to be and
post-childhood
wondering
trauma.
what it's like.
Like at some point, somebody locked you in the room and
No,
and
not at all.
observed.
I was never locked in the room, so I never knew what it was like. That's what I'm
Denial
saying.
101.
Yeah. First step to recovery is accepting that there's a problem, and
Are we all going to the zoo?
Let's
I
go
think
to
we
the
should go to
zoo.
the zoo. I think the high level takeaway from that is we're going to the zoo.
I've been saying that for years. Nobody wants to go to the zoo with me.
Let's take a lift to the zoo and track each other.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Well, on that note, let's do some plugs. Johnny, what would you like to plug?
What do I want to plug? I guess I could plug my podcast. I have a podcast called
Yeah.
The Gear Dive for Golf WRX. That's like a golf geek, gearhead, tech junkie golf show.
It'll be more golf accurate than this podcast. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. Phil Mickelson. At this point, he showed up with a slight Canadian accent, which I thought was very charming.
Yeah.
And also with a very short fuse.
He was at the end
Yep.
of his rope, I think.
And what else can I plug? Let me think here. I guess that's kind of it. I mean, the film company that I'm a partner in, where we have a bunch of scary stuff coming out here in the next 12 months. We're working on a film about the Los Feliz murder mansion, and
Ooh.
do you guys know anything about that?
A little bit.
That and the 1140 Royal Street house in New Orleans, which is Kathy Bates' character was based on Madame
Oh,
Mallory
yeah.
in
Okay. Yep.
American
Yeah,
Horror
yeah.
Story.
Mhm.
Glen Tavern Inn in Santa Paula, we're developing a film around that. We should be shooting that in the next year. That's a really super crazy haunted hotel. And then the Conjured Chest, which is all these things you can look up literally on YouTube and look up on Paranormal Activity or Paranormal the Zach Bagans show.
Mm-hmm.
He's done shows on all these places, but they're all properties that we're developing that all should be ready to go and either get filmed or will be in the can by, I would say, by the end of 2019. So,
Wow.
Los Feliz Murder House is probably the scariest of all those stories. You guys want me to tell you about that story?
Sure, let's hear about it.
Okay, so I might get the dates a little screwed up because I'm a little tired, but the 1950s. This is in Los Angeles. Los Feliz is a pretty, highbrow community now in Hollywood, and where the Glendower house sits, which is it's the Glendower property, it sits right below the Enos house, which is the Frank Lloyd Wright house that was in like House on Haunted Hill, the original one. And right around Christmas time in I think it was 1959, a doctor named Harold Perelson came home late at night and took a ball pen hammer and smashed his wife's face in, killing her, and then went after the kids. He had 3 kids. And the kids got away. Now, I'm going to tell you the urban legend version of the story because it's a little sexier than the real story, but the parallels are pretty close to the same. But what the urban legend had been for a long time was that he'd gone in, taken a cup of acid, swallowed it, lied next to his wife, and just died out. Killed himself, which he did. He ended up killing himself, but in a different way in real life. So the most interesting thing about that house is if the 3 of us or the 4 of us would have shown up to the house 2 years ago and looked in the window, we would see Christmas presents, the remains of an old tree, which obviously wouldn't still be there, but the little platform that was on, old time magazines, basically a time capsule of the night of the murder.
Okay.
That's where the mystique of the house, because the new owners, people that bought it after the murder, didn't live there for whatever reason.
Okay.
And the idea was that they had bought the house to be their family house, and the old man had gone in there, was going to start to renovate it, and for whatever reason, he never really expressed this to his family members. He decided not to move the family, and they never rented it out. They never did anything. His story was like, I don't want to touch that house. I'm just going to leave it. And what they used it for was for deceased family member storage. So when somebody would pass away, they would take all their relics and throw it in this house.
Okay.
And there's a bunch of different theories to why that happened, but ultimately it was just a vacant house, $3 or $4 million house in the middle of a really wealthy, it's a mansion. It's huge.
Wow.
And so obviously, they would get vagrants and people that would go in there and break in the house and go do drugs and sleep and find shelter. But the odd thing about it was that whenever the cops would go in there and pull people out, nobody was in the central part of the house. There was like a kitchen, and there's bedrooms, and there's beds in there, and places where people could be comfortable. People would be out in the corners of the house, like in the basement in the corners. So it's almost like if you are in a scary situation, you're going to go to the corner and get as close to the outside as you can so that you can see out to what's out there. That's where they would find people, which is the most uncomfortable place in the whole house. Like there was places you could hang out, like just couches and they've pulled people out there that were mumbling all sorts of crazy stuff, and people whose hair had turned patches of white found in their hair. And once again, a lot of this is urban legend. But it's a really scary place. So oddly enough, about a year and a half ago, the family that owned it, the last family member had passed away, and Lisa Bloom, the attorney that I think is Gloria Aldrich's daughter, her and her husband purchased it now and are renovating the house. And but that story and the stories that have happened since the night of the murder, the kids completely disappeared, so they got shipped off to the East Coast. Nobody knows where they're at. One of the scary things is the night of the murder, the oldest daughter, I think her name was Judy, she ran out of the house and was banging on neighbors' doors covered in blood because she had been hit in the head. He tried to hit her, or he hit her. She got away, and a couple of the neighbors wouldn't open the door for her. And the woman that lives across the street from the house is a pretty famous Beverly Hills dentist now, but she saw the whole thing go down as a kid. So this is her childhood house. So she saw the whole.
Wow. So
it's a scary. It's a pretty dark.
Yeah.
Dark. So creating narratives around that for a film is a little challenging.
Yeah.
But it's that's one that it's the American Horror Story sort of touched on elements of that story in the first season.
Murder House
with Dylan McDermott. It's sort of the idea of like this house with history that this family moves into. But they don't go into as deep as they could have. But it's a really scary story. So so that's one of the things that I guess my favorite thing to develop is scary stuff, and those are four properties that we've chased down in the last couple of years that return into movies. But it's it's a lot, but It's fun.
Amazing.
Nice.
Anyway,
Yeah.
So watch movies, watch scary movies.
Yeah, I can't wait for those to come out.
Yeah.
2019.
Yeah.
Keep an eye
Hopefully,
out.
hopefully,
Yeah.
fingers crossed. Yeah, we'll see.
But we'll be tweeting that out at Spooked Podcast,
Put it on the Twitter.
as well as on the sonarnetwork.com. You'll be able to see a full profile on Johnny, as well as links to the social medias. And thank you to the Pacific Junction Hotel and Eggplant Picture and Sound for hooking us up with this beautiful space. Just got fucking spooked.
Spooked.
This podcast has been brought to you by the Sonar Network.